Welcome everyone to After the Bell with yours truly, Jeff Meacham. Thank you all for watching all of our shows each and every week. I can't express enough how much I appreciate all the love we get and even all the hate we get, quite honestly. You know, you guys love us, you hate us, whatever. It really doesn't matter. As long as y'all are watching, that's the important thing. I've got some questions on Facebook, I got some questions on Twitter, I got some questions from YouTube. Let's just get right into it. This is from Clayton Blum. There's been a lot of talk about Cena turning heel, but no one has been talking about who would be affected by this change. If Cena turns heel, he would most likely be the top heel in the WWE. Do you see any current heel changing to be a babyface to go against Cena? My first pick for the change would be Miz to go babyface. If he did a self-centered, cocky character similar to The Rock, it'd be an easy change for him and kind of continues the story after WrestleMania without The Rock. Definitely could see that happening. You know, I don't know, you know, JJ and I talked about this, about The Miz being a babyface or not, and, you know, he's so far out there as far as, you know, just being this over cocky, over, you know, exaggerated heel, and whether it'd work or not, and it could work, because the people do want to like The Miz, I think, but it really would depend on what happens at WrestleMania, and whether The Miz ends up getting the match, or whether he ends up being on, you know, Team Laurinaitis, or whether he ends up not performing at all. We really have to wait and see what happens with that situation. So, I'd like to see Miz turn babyface and go against the heel Cena, but realistically, don't think it's going to happen. It's from Howard Friend. Going through the years of the WWE Championship, and they don't have a black champion besides The Rock. What's up with that? I think they had better wrestlers than The Rock that never had a shot or a chance. Wrestlers like Ahmed Johnson, Ron Simmons, Tony Atlas, Abdullah the Butcher, Booker T, or even Mabel, Viscera, Big Daddy V, whatever he calls himself now. What are your thoughts on this subject? P.S. After the Bell for Broski of the Week. Most of those guys you mentioned, I don't think, you know, would be a viable world champion, WWE champion. Or, you know, Booker T, you did mention, and he was a WWE World Heavyweight Champion. The rest of those guys, Ron Simmons in his WWE career was primarily a tag team superstar, and then once the APA broke up for good, he was pretty much a comedic relief. So I don't know if he would be a good, you know, world champion in that role. Abdullah the Butcher, I don't think he ever worked full time in WWE, so I don't see him. You know, Tony Atlas, tag team wrestler primarily. You know, those guys you mentioned were great mid-carders or tag team superstars. Not good on the singles front, I don't think. You know, guys like Shelton Benjamin, same thing. Intercontinental U.S. champion, not so much WWE World Heavyweight champion. Booker T was the most viable candidate. He ended up being the world champion, just never the WWE champion. This is from John Pereira. Yeah. Hey Jeff, are WWE going PG along with the poor writing? Do you think they undid everything that Vince and Austin did for the company in the 90s, or do you think they are just doing what is right for business now? I don't think they're undoing what the Attitude Era did. I think they are, you know, presenting a different product. And I think personally that not necessarily right for business, because, you know, business is down. But they're doing what they feel is right because they're trying to appeal to a different market now than they did, you know, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's not the same market. They're trying to appeal to the kids. They're trying to appeal to the ladies. They're trying to appeal to different people than they were back in the 90s and the early 2000s. And Vince seems to think it's working. So I personally don't think it is, but Vince seems to think it is. These are all from YouTube. Here we go. Lawson Ricky 12. Hey Jeff, what is the greatest match you've seen in person? Also, JJ can answer this as well. For me, the greatest match I ever saw in person, as far as live, you know, at the arena, and JJ's gonna hate me for this one. TNA Turning Point 2004, AMX versus AMW, American Most Wanted versus Triple X in the cage. Great match. Phenomenal spots, just a great finish, and just overall great pay-per-view, but that match really stole the show. Sorry, Jay. What's your answer?
I have a tie. I'm going to have to go with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Jason Takes PWG, AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels in an hour-long time limit draw. And Jeff is going to hate me for this one. I'm going to have to go with NWA Hollywood, Colt Cabana
There you go.
versus Adam Pearce the night the belt changed hands.
There you go. And we could see that again very soon. You just never know. This is from J1992It. Been a loyal fan since your first video on the other show, and my question is for you or JJ, since Flair is going to be at the Hall of Fame, do you think you'll be present on the WrestleMania stage? Because even though Brett was at the Hall of Fame when he was inducted, he was not present for WrestleMania. And with Flair still contracted with TNA, he might not be able to go on WWE TV. Custody Team Studio for Broski Week, and Dylan for Broski Mascot of the Week. There you go. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens, because Flair is still under TNA contract. He probably won't be on the TV broadcast for the Hall of Fame, because he can't. And very unlikely he'll be at WrestleMania as far as on TV. He'll probably be there hanging around backstage like he did last year. But I don't see him on WWE TV at all.
I gotta agree. I even don't think they're gonna show the Four Horsemen ceremony when they air the hour-long Hall of Fame prior to Raw.
Yeah.
As a result of the fact that he's under TNA contract. It would be cool because I don't really think we could logistically see the Horsemen come out on stage to take their place in front of the crowd without seeing Flair.
Right.
Like you said, it's going to be interesting to see how this is handled, because TNA could be, good little jimmies, so to speak, and allow Flair to appear on the TV, knowing that they can just parlay that into further angles down in TNA.
Right. I mean, Hogan even said he didn't mind. But that was Hogan.
Yeah.
That's Hogan blowing smoke up people's butt, as he always does. So we'll have to see how that plays out. George Cushney, 1982. Thank you for answering my question last show. I updated my YouTube handle just to confuse you, haha. I wanted to ask you what the heck, he said something else, is this GM versus GM match at WrestleMania. It's got the potential to be a massive cluster F. They should just have a Money in the Bank match regardless of Wade's injury. Well, they could, but the whole plan was to have Wade win Money in the Bank. So to have a Money in the Bank without the winner that they had booked would be another cluster F. I like the fact that they're doing a GM versus GM storyline. That way we can have, one guy in charge. They've been talking about this for weeks. I think that they could potentially do something very good with this. Yes, sir.
The way I would have handled this situation is I would have had the Money in the Bank match go off, have insert person here win the briefcase, and then once Wade comes back, have a Edge Kennedy scenario where Wade takes the briefcase off of the winner.
Makes sense.
Thereby putting the briefcase on the man who was supposed to have it all along.
Right. That makes sense. Let's see. Mr. Bonesaw 1000. Jeff, been a fan of yours since the RVD interview back in your no DQ days. Thank you. I have two questions. First being, shouldn't it have been Mr. T to induct Hogan and not Stallone? And do you think T will ever be in the Hall of Fame? I think they've offered it to Mr. T, and he's turned it down. And Mr. T inducting Hogan would have been interesting, but Stallone has more star power than Mr. T does. And they wanted a huge, big star name to induct their biggest star of all time. So having Stallone do it made more sense. What are your predictions for the card at SummerSlam? I heard such things as Rock, Cena 2, a World Title Unification match, and even a Money in the Bank. Jeff and JJ for Broski of the Week. P.S. I saw you at Staples Center last month and I marked out. Well, thank you. SummerSlam. JJ is going. We know that for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Thanks to his maternal intervention. Money in the Bank would be cool to see at SummerSlam since they didn't have it at WrestleMania, but I think they're just gonna kind of let that one go. A World Title Unification match would be awesome as long as they have the two right guys as the champions. And Rock Cena 2, I've heard, is pretty much a lock. So that'd be cool to see them go at SummerSlam. Let's see. Tommy Jr. 89. Jeff, how long before Claudio Castagnoli and Chris Hero remain in FCW? Well, before I even get to that, FCW is being closed. I don't know if you guys have heard about this. FCW is closing immediately. Yes, sir.
No, it is not.
It's not.
There was a statement issued this morning by Steve Kern himself.
Oh. Okay.
That was a hoax, and that was bad internet journalism from those spam-filled websites that went around there.
That's right. There you go. And I didn't read that on that particular site or any other sites. I read that on I didn't read that. I forgot where I read that, but it wasn't anything I usually.
Was it on WWE.com?
It was not.
Then it was not legit.
There you go. How long should Claudio and Chris stay in FCW before debuting on the main roster? Granted, the required time to build their characters is Antonio and Cassius. Really? Cassius Ono? Really? But they are established stars from the likes of Ring of Honor and PWG. So how long do you think before WWE believes they can hold their own on Raw and SmackDown? Love the show, by the way. Fan since day one. Antonio and Cassius should have been on the main roster already. As Chris and Claudio, by the way. I think this whole name change was stupid. I get why, but, whatever. Whatever. They should be in the main roster already, but if they're going to develop Antonio and Cassius, it'll probably be a couple more months before we see them on WWE television. And it'd be cool to see them, SummerSlam-ish. That'd be cool. Hey Jeff, love the shows. I just want to get your thoughts on a question. I've been a wrestling fan since I was a kid in the 80s. I just like watching wrestling and enjoying the shows for both athletic and soap opera perspectives. Why does it seem that a lot of today's fan base is never satisfied with what WWE or TNA or even maybe the indie shows offer? Is it the internet or social networks that cause fans just to keep talking crap? I mean, the product isn't perfect and has room for improve. That's from GW Bad. Well, wrestling always has room for improvement. No question about that. I think today's fan is very jaded, though. Today's fan is very cynical. No question about that. And I think that they are never satisfied, like you said. They're never happy with what they're presented. They always demand and want and need, apparently, more. I'm not particularly happy with the TNA product right now. I haven't been for a while. WWE product is getting better. Ring of Honor I've still not seen, but I hear it keeps getting better and better. NWA Hollywood is getting better. PWG I've heard is doing awesome things still. It's really just a matter of where you are in the country and what you're watching. So yes, sir.
If I may interject, I think a lot of it has to do with when you became a fan.
This is also true.
Put the internet aside for a second, and if you became a fan prior to the Attitude Era, even going back to the glory days, the 80s, the Hogan, the Rock and Wrestling and everything, and you watched some of that cheeseball comic booky stuff that was put in front of you, and then the switch to the more aggressive, raw, pun intended, Attitude Era type of stuff, and then you watch where it's gone since then, it's kind of like they're reverting back to the cheesy, goofy comic bookiness of the 80s.
Right, to a certain
Whereas
extent, yeah.
if you came into it and became a fan, let's say in 2002, 2003, when John Cena and Randy Orton and Batista and guys like that were just starting to hit their stride and make their name, then maybe wrestling right now doesn't seem all that bad to you.
Right, yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with is if you were a fan during that Attitude Era, the Invasion Era, the start of the Ruthless Aggression Era, when wrestling was really, really hot and doing major numbers, anything put in front of you is going to look like garbage compared to that.
No question. I mean, if you're watching during the Monday Night Wars when there was serious competition from both sides, and now you're getting TNA trying to be competitive with WWE and they're not happening, you're going to think it's crap, no question. And WWE doesn't need to worry about TNA or Ring of Honor or any of those guys because they just don't. Good point, Mr. Williams. Good point.
Thank you.
Yes.
I try.
All right, now we're on Twitter. Wrestling Stuff J. Jeff, what if Ring of Honor moved to a national broadcast on Tuesdays at like 8 or 9 Eastern? That'd be cool. If they got national broadcast and not just this little sporadic stuff around the country, Ring of Honor would be a contender. I firmly believe that. I said that all along. Ring of Honor's got a great product, from what I've seen. And if they got a national primetime broadcast like at 8 or 9 Eastern, they would own. They would own. Acid E Rain on Twitter. Who do you think was a better heel, Hogan or Ventura?
Excuse me.
Ventura was a good heel for his day, and he did make a slight impact as a heel, as a tag team and a singles competitor, and as a commentator also. But, you know, it's very hard to argue with the success of the NWO and Hollywood Hogan and all those guys. Very hard to argue with that. I mean, granted, Hulkamaniac, whatever, I'm going to sound biased maybe, but, you know, Hollywood Hogan turning heel and, you know, becoming part of the NWO and really, you know, making that impact changed WCW's fortunes and made them the #1 product in the world. So, you know, better heel, gotta go with Hulk. Chronoclipsidra on Twitter. Jesus Christ, his Twitter names. With Santino's recent U.S. Championship reign, would it be a fitting gimmick to bring back the European title instead of the U.S. Championship? JJ would love that. However, not with Santino. I still say it should be William Regal or one of the United Kingdom boys, Drew McIntyre or
who?
What's that?
Who?
Drew McIntyre.
Who?
What?
Drew.
Oh, sorry.
McIntyre.
There you go. Thank you. I forgot our gimmick for a minute there. My bad. I can't do that. I can do the role like he can. So that's, you know.
Or Wade.
Or
but
Wade.
He's being groomed for world title material.
That'd be awesome. But yeah, was Santino being U.S.
Cassius, or no, not Cassius, but Antonio Cesaro.
Yeah, Antonio Cesaro would be a great European champion. Oh God.
Hey.
Anyway, and come up with the Olympic theme at the start of it. Yes, license that theme for WWE. Absolutely. Let's see. This is from Proctor Sean. I think his real name is Sean Proctor, but we'll go with his Twitter name. Who are your all-time favorite mic workers? We had a show about this with Aaron. You know, mine
Double Down with Double A, episode 5, I believe it was.
There you go.
Go back
Episode 5, WWA. His are, Sean's are Hulk, Sting, Cena, and the late great Randy Savage. I did mention pretty much all those guys, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But go back and watch that episode.
Double Down with Double A, episode 5.
And you'll see my answer to that question. That's what I got. That's my questions. Thank you all for Twitter and Facebook and on YouTube. I've got more here, but I've got like 4 or 5 for like the same guy, so I'm going to save those for a future day. And this has been After the Bell with Jeff Meacham. I will see you next week.